Welcome back, participants. We will now move on to our forum, Evolution in Digital Banking Revolution, moderated by Nabil Nazri, to discuss how traditional banks will maintain their position and indicate which key priority to pursue. Without further ado, let us invite our moderator Nabil, our panelists Eak-Kuan, Kar Hoe, and Keng Yip to the stage. Please take note, our speakers are speaking as individuals and they do not represent any organization. Hence, they accept no responsibility for any loss arising from any action taken or non-taken by anyone using this material. Without further ado, I'll now pass the session to Nabil to moderate.
Thank you, Queenie. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for staying tuned to today's session. It's so excited to see every one of you here today, hoping to get some insight into the world of finance, with our esteemed panelists sharing their journey thoughts and wisdom. Well, our topic today, evolution of banking in digital revolution. And as it suggests, we have seen tremendous changes and transformation in the banking industry, including digitalization effort by the industry players. And recently, digital banking making headlines with parties submitting their license application to Bank Negara. So I'm Nabil, CFA Society Malaysia, and with me today, three experienced panelists and CFA Charterholders who could tell us more about this exciting stuff that's happening in the banking industry. First, we have Mr. Wee Keng Yip, the Director of Client Coverage, RHB Investment Bank. He's a licensed capital market practitioner with over 15 years of experience, particularly in corporate advisory, capital raising, wholesale banking, and relationship management. He also used to serve the capital market regulator, i.e. the Securities Commission. Next, we have Mr. Lum Kar Hoe, Senior Manager of Financial Services of PwC Malaysia, where he serviced clients such as fund management companies and private equity companies. Kar Hoe will be the best to talk about the digital banking landscape, as he is part of the working group in PwC and has recently assisted the applicant on the license application. Last but not least, we have Mr. Chan Eak-Kuan, a structurer of Hong Leong Bank's Global Market Division. His specialization includes treasury structure product development for institutional and wealth segments, derivative pricing and execution, among others. Before we start, just want to reiterate that the opinions and views expressed by the speakers today are in their individual capacity and do not reflect the views of the organization they are represented, associated with. Now, apart sharing a little bit more about what you do in general, being someone who witnessed changes in the banking landscape over the years, maybe if you can share with us what has changed in the past 10 years and what else that we can anticipate in the transformation journey of the banking industry.
Yes, I first of all, right, thanks for helping with the introduction and a word of thanks also to the society for putting this forum together. And also not forgetting a very good evening to our participants who have taken time to be with us, right? So if I may, maybe just allow me to walk us down the memory lane, and I think, I would spend a bit of time discussing matters here, right? So sometime a decade ago, our BNM, if I could recall, introduced the financial sector blueprint, right? The whole idea with that is to really facilitate a high-income economy, if I could recall, develop robust and dynamic financial markets with the focus of wanting to have a stronger financial inclusion. So some of the measures mooted in the blueprint were also, to look at matters such as to develop our local small medium enterprises, improve access to information asymmetries for users, enhance capability of insurance and takafu industry, and also in a way to assist FIs, which are financial institutions, to have more operational flexibility. So this will help introduce new products as well as improve distribution along the value chain, right? And again, this time for the need to really enhance offerings to cater the growing needs of the economy. So of course, that was very much during the first half of the 5 years, right? Until sometime in 2016, if I could recall, there was also a foundation for a safer and stronger financial system, which was introduced under the Central Bank of Malaysia Act, as well as the FSA and Islamic Financial Services Act, right? So again, this is very much centered on the prudential guidelines stemming from what we see with, in relation to the earlier global financial crisis, right? So through that, a lot of the banks, notably in Malaysia, have, as well as the insurers, have taken various capital raising exercise. Again, that's very much to help with capitalizing their balance sheet. And I think with that, it really paved way with a slew of developments, like I've said earlier, right? Today, FIs, you see that we are very much focused in financing the growth of SMEs, right? I mean, just to share with you, the sector itself is probably the highest growth with over 10% per annum. Then also, I think more importantly, to cover a niche from Malaysia in the form of Islamic finance. We have also seen a lot of introduction of Islamic products. Like for example, today, as consumers, you can always access Shara-based products, for example, share margin financing, Islamic credit cards, loans, factorings, derivatives, and even other form of treasury solutions. Then we also saw a fair bit of reforms that have taken place within the within the insurance as well as the protection space, where we saw improved penetration with aims to reduce the protection gap among society by and large, right? So, of course, more crucially, moving into the second half until 2020, which was just last year, right? At the back of some of these foundations being built, as well as the need to conform with the current technology trends, what we have seen is a great effort in terms of digitalization initiatives undertaken by the FIs, right? I think during this period alone, there was so much money invested in improving and so much money being put in to improve the technology as well as digital capabilities, as well as introduction of big data analytics that most banks have really embarked on, right? It's only with that we were able to introduce a lot more mobile banking apps. We now have the capability to introduce targeted marketing campaigns, focusing on boundaries, reduction in bank branches. I mean, to name a few, right? And also that aside, right? We have also saw, I would say, the birth of the birth or introduction of the new frontiers, right? And these are very much players within what is known as the fintech or financial technology. And we saw digital wallets such as Touch and Go, Boost, GrabPay, to name a few. There's also Maybank QR Pay, right? International money transfers, peer-to-peer platforms, for example, the likes of Funding Society, Capital Bay, and also a host of other trends, right? So, I mean, interestingly, I also recall vaguely, right? I came across an article that talks about adoption of e-wallet, which, frankly, it is highest amongst consumers who are traditionally banked. So these are, people from the dinosaur era like myself, right? And also, I think this only goes on to demonstrate the extent of the literacy and trust on digital finance initiatives now. So having said that, I think what is also more important is to note that the Gen Z, so we would classify the Gen Z for those that are under the age of 24, which I believe many of these are participants today, right? They probably have the highest adoption rate in terms of e-wallets, as well as, in terms of, their consumer behavior, spending behavior will be very much centered with regards to e-payment, right? And also, I think, again, looking back, this is only possible is because in Malaysia as well as in Southeast Asia, we do see a fairly high smartphone penetration rate, right? So I think that's probably that, right? Of course, forward today, I think BNM will be working on the newest blueprint. I think it's known as what? Blueprint 3.0. I think focusing on enabling technology as well as data-driven innovation. I mean, I won't want to talk too much about this because I would think that these are probably sections which Kar Hoe can be the better person to share his insights. I would say that this is probably it, right? I mean, in terms of the developments that at the very least that I observed through my own personal lenses. I mean, I'm happy to take more questions from Nabil if you have.
Okay, thank you. Very interesting sharing, and you've seen such a transformation journey that all over the years. Right? Well, I think such transformation definitely is not something new, and current pandemic situation proved to be a challenging period for the banks. But I also believe that catalyst is also a catalyst for the industry to adapt to the new normal, especially what happens in the past 1.5 years. Kar Hoe, maybe if you can share a bit about your recent encounter on digital banking space, and whether do you think it will eventually replace traditional way of banking sector work? Kar Hoe?
Yeah, thanks, Nabil, and good evening to everyone here. So I think we are in a very interesting journey right now. Like in Malaysia, for example, I think in this region, Singapore started off offering the digital banking license, then came to Malaysia, and then next we are hearing that Indonesia, I think just a few days ago, they came out with a similar framework. So the thing with digital banking is, it is basically a bank similar like your traditional bank. The only difference is they don't have a branch, so they need to offer all their services digitally, which is through the app or through the browser. So the thing with this digital bank, they are just starting off, and you are seeing you're seeing players like the tech guys. You are hearing press release from people like Grab saying that they want to do some banking service. So these tech guys are coming in to do banking. They will definitely give the traditional bank a run for their money. They will want to hope to replace the traditional bank. Then at the same time, there's also other kind of traditional banks, like in Hong Kong, one of the main bank, they actually set up a digital bank under their own umbrella, and their idea is they hope that this digital bank can actually give some competition to their own bank. So they rather lose customers to their own digital bank than to other banks out there. I mean, ideally, they will then hope that most of their customers eventually migrate from the traditional bank to the digital bank. The challenges that most of these traditional banks have is because they have a lot of legacy processes and systems in place. It's very difficult to replace them overnight because the organization has a life on its own. But if we are talking about digital bank, these banks are starting from scratch. They're not encumbered, no baggage, no legacy. They start from scratch, and they bring along a lot of new technologies, new solutions, new ways of doing banking services. Like for example, if you look at China, in the past, if you want to apply for a loan, you just need to fill in lengthy forms, wait a few days for approvals. But these days, the digital banks, like in China, they actually do one step ahead. They will actually pre-vet you based on your eligibility, and they have actually many criteria. For example, if you use WeChat, the WeBank in China, what they will do is they will look at alternative ways of credit scoring you. They look at who you talk to. If in your contact list you have people who are very affluent, then they know that probably you belong to the group that has higher propensity to spend, and you will not be having a high default risk. So they can assess you, and they know anytime you press the button on the app, I will release 5,000 ringgit to you immediately within 15 minutes. And that changes the way banking business is being done. So these kind of solutions that this digital bank brings is actually very interesting because it will then force the traditional bank to reinvent themselves. So will they replace? Maybe not, because they're at the time when these banks are just starting up and they need to build trust from the people. So what I personally feel is this digital bank will start off and they'll mainly be used for small value item. Also coincide with the fact that they have a limited size that they can offer to the customer based on the regulation. But over time, they will eventually become more competitive. and it will be interesting space to see how the competition settles at the end of the day. Yeah.
Right. Kar Hoe, I think just to add on, I think there's one question from the public. Maybe if you can address a little bit the difference between, you know, internet banking and mobile banking with digital banking.
This is an interesting one. So this term has been used very interchangeably. So before this, offering banking services digitally, so you have that is where we have internet banking and mobile banking. But Bank Negara has, for example, in the past, let's say Maybank, take a step back, Maybank. Last time you do a transaction through the counter, and then Maybank came up with Maybank to you, and then they came up with their Maybank app. So you are seeing a traditional bank having the traditional branch, but they introduce new channels such as the browser and the mobile, and they offer their banking services digitally. But they still have their branch. But what Bank Negara is doing is they have come up with a new set of license, and they have termed it as digital bank. In Malaysia, we call it digital bank. In Hong Kong, the similar digital bank is called virtual bank, but it's a defined term where basically these are banks that are fully licensed to offer the full suite of financial services product, except they cannot have a branch. So that is the main difference. I hope it clarifies.
Thank you, Kar Hoe. Yesterday's session, I think, if you guys are aware, we were talking about data science, right? Eak-Kuan, I think maybe if you can share your view a bit on the importance of data analytics in banking sector and how this helps traditional banking segments in getting their businesses. Eak-Kuan?
Yeah, I think specifically speaking from my perspective, from a market's perspective, from a structuring perspective, I mean, the usage of data has been around for quite some time. It's just that within right now in this generation and what we do right now, there's a lot of digitalization happening, and that is why I mean, even right before, I mean, we're now in 2021, 20 years back, 30 years back, people have been using structured data all the time, to make different investment decisions. You have your portfolio managers looking at Sharpe ratios, trying to calculate volatilities from from historical data, price movement and stuff like that. And only because now we have a large data boom, you have data generated every day by your clients in the market, social media, where you have all sorts of unstructured data coming out to try to analyze and predict what people are doing and what people are not doing even. Yeah. So at least for me, from my perspective, where what I do in the bank, it comes from two perspectives. So number one, very clearly, is that we are trying to make better investment decisions. We are trying to predict better market conditions for our clients to enter into the market or exit the market, for that matter. That is one part of it. The second part of it is actually, I mean, coming from a sell side perspective from global markets, is that we're trying to understand clientele behavior. Yeah. I mean, right now, if you look at the market, there's a lot of volatility. We don't know when will we come out of the COVID recovery, what is going to happen in the next 1 or 2 years locally and globally. So how does it actually affect clientele behavior when it comes to investment decisions? So ultimately, when we come to the usage of data, it points to the same goal. Number one is just we want to provide better service to our clients. And on investment decisions is to provide better risk-return parity and to read to the market, what are the requirements they need. Are we using data in the right way? Are we looking at enough, or actually are we looking at too much of the data, reading too much into it, and are we filtering out the noise from the data itself? Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, just a little bit of controversial question here. I mean, because we're talking about traditional banking, we're talking about digital banks. I mean, surely there are things that digital banking space could not replicate yet what traditional banking is doing. Maybe Eak-Kuan, you can comment a little bit on that.
I mean, speaking on the competitive edge between traditional banks against digital banks. So yes, I think from my understanding of where we're coming from the competitive edge is that we definitely have a first mover advantage because banks have been around for some time, and that there's something that we have been doing for a while. The traditional way of taking deposits and providing loans, that is the model. But again, when it comes to digital banking, at this day and age, everything is about efficiency and everything is about UX, right? Customer experience and customer interfaces. And a lot of the digital banks only, admittedly, they are doing very well in that area, because they can provide faster service, faster turnaround time in account opening, for example, or in providing credit in some of the the micro credit providers out there. So I think in some sense there's a bit, I mean, admittedly, again, there's a lot of competition coming on, and there will be more competition going on between traditional banks and digital banks or virtual banks, like what Kar Hoe mentioned. Ultimately, each of us have a advantage, and we do have the limitations to what we can do and what we can't do. So it comes down to the fact that, are we playing to the right advantage in our respective fields? Yeah, and is there a way where there's a symbiotic relation between us traditional banks and digital banks to work closely together in that angle?
Okay. Interesting. Okay, let's just take a step back a little bit, and since we all want to know what are the things that we can do in the banking sector, right? Changes aside, maybe you could share roles in banking industry that will remain relevant. You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So, I mean, it's an interesting question because Eak-Kuan did talk about the extent of the competition, and as well as Kar Hoe also shared quite a bit in terms of traditional banks, right? Having the need to remain competitive. But having said that, I think interestingly, we can't deny that, or we can't stop digital transformation from happening. But yeah, I mean, it's okay. I mean, this of course comes from my own personal view, right? That I mean, like I said, right? I mean, we can't put a stop to it. But of course, I think what's important is that there is a need to navigate the challenges, as well as opportunities ahead. With a very concrete roadmap. I think banks today need to be seen as implementing strategies to really thrive in the age of disruption, right? But having said that, I think what is more important is the currency of trust. Okay, I would like to repeat it again, right? I think I would like to be clear that this will be this will be trust and relationships, and it's not something which I would think that digital banking can just come in to immediately fill the void, right? And again, why so is because that for customers, the core essence is that for every transaction that they undertake, I think what is important is that the process that is being put in place, the thought process, has to ensure that security is paramount important, right? So again, it falls back to the element of trust, right? So for example, let's talk about customer onboarding, right? These are roles which I would think that it requires a large extent of client-facing. For example, in an event where large money or large proceeds or that is in place, right? And if I would to perhaps draw upon my experience in relation to advisory matters like advisory on IPOs, initial public offerings, mergers and acquisition, talking about advising on debt and equity placements, this type of services require quite a bit of personalization. It requires quite a bit of diligence and even judgment, right? So I don't know whether or not what I've seen in so far, evolution and digitalization can actually replace all this together. So I would think that it's going to be a very symbiosis relationship between digital as well as the traditional banking on its own, right? Then, of course, there's a whole others process with regards to corporate credit risk. You're talking about disbursement of funds from banks, from corporate lending, which still requires substantial level of manual intervention due to various legal considerations, right? So of course, you put that aside, right? And then you also have some of the disruptions that we see, like for example, like the likes of robo-advisors. I'm not sure how many of you have heard of that, right? This word has been creating quite a bit of buzz within the financial institutions as well as followers of this segment, right? And I mean, for the benefit of some of the audience here, robo-advisors are practically digital platforms that provide automated algorithm-based driven investment services, right? I mean, it's even a mouthful to really talk about this. And some of the examples that I've seen, like this would be the likes of your StashAway and Accru, which is very much Malaysian home-based, right? And I would think that there will be potential disruption in terms of the traditional unit trust space. But I really can't say that, with the introduction of robo-advisors, it will be sufficient to completely disrupt the entire private banking space, right? So, again, for the benefit of the audience, private banking is largely a place where tailored financial services is being provided by banks, largely to service high net worth individuals or even ultra high net worth individuals. Again, it falls back to the essence, which is very much trust and relationship in money management. So hence, again, I would like to probably reiterate that definitely there's a lot of symbiosis relationship between both sides. For banks, we cannot ignore that digital banking will largely be a disruptor, right? Again, of course, to what extent, I think that time will only tell, right? So I'll probably stop here, Nabil, and ask if you have further questions.
Yeah, I think I like the concept of trust that you're mentioning just now. I think give us a bit more perspective looking into the industry. Well, just to also add on, I think for the benefit of all the aspiring CFA candidates out there, our curriculum also changing as and when our industry landscape is changing. Topics such as AI, machine learning, blockchain is also being introduced in the curriculum just to make sure that the candidates are actually keep up with the evolution. Some question actually being asked. I think Kahu, you may want to take this question on. The same machine learning modeling techniques apply for both traditional and digital banking in credit approval process.
Yeah, so basically, like I said, the digital banks are coming in with new ways of doing business, like this alternative credit scoring mechanism. But doesn't mean that traditional banks are just going to sit down and watch their businesses being taken away by someone who can offer a loan 15 minutes. So I'm seeing the traditional banks studying into this area as well. They are also, and the beauty of this, the age that we are living today is there's many. It has actually democratized the whole industry. You have fintech players coming up and they specialize on certain areas. So for example, one company will just come up and the only thing they focus on is eKYC, where you can create an account using your phone, scan your face, scan your IC as an account. There's also a company that's dedicated only on providing alternative credit scoring, and they are going around talking to the aspiring digital bank players as well as the existing traditional banks and say, hey, I have this way of appraising customers, and I have data to prove that it works. On hindsight, if I were to look at these customers' behavior and looking at eventually they default or they don't default, it's turned out that my model is not accurate. So the traditional banks are actually listening. So are they adopting machine learning or not? In a way, they are starting to by trying to understand or trying to partner with some of these alternative credit scoring providers out there.
Okay. Just one more. How about blockchain technology? How how plays its roles basically in the digital banking arena?
I think right now blockchain is something that personally I have seen more application in it being used to reduce costs when it comes to remittances. So last time, if you want to transfer money from Malaysia to Singapore, there's like 10 parties involved. You go to your bank will need to send the instructions, and it goes through the SWIFT infrastructure, and then there's this various clearing process, and then it goes to a central bank in that respective country, and then they will process it, and then it goes to the house bank over the country. So there's a lot of cost involved. So one application that I've seen is some local fintech players, they are using blockchain to help perform settlement of remittances in a more efficient and, more importantly, is cheaper because blockchain is transparent. So they don't have to pay a SWIFT, a middle party, and that is the kind of application that we are seeing, but even in the traditional bank itself. So whether it's traditional bank or digital bank, blockchain is something that it will eventually be used more frequently. I think it's important to understand why are they considering blockchain for what purposes, because the most important thing about blockchain is it's transparent and it's trustable, and it is this concept that has found its way in many applications. In the future, maybe there will be like smart contracts where you enter in a contract with the bank, and that record is on the blockchain for anyone else to verify. That application is still in the nascent stage, but I suppose you will see more of it in the coming years.
Thank you. Eak-Kuan, I think this one question, maybe you can take it on. It's from the audience talking about, capital market, such as fixed income and other instruments will move to digital. And then on your opinion on the future of trading.
Yeah, I think this question is quite good. I mean, if you look back again, historically, traditionally, I mean, we used to be on paper trading. I mean, you say if you want to buy a security, you literally would have to get the security paper that cert itself to prove that you have buy or sell a security. And right now, in our current market, we are using scriptless securities. That you will have your central depository that has all these binary numbers that prove that you are an owner of a script, right? So that itself is the current state of it, and the future of it. If we have to move into more digitalization, I think like what Kar Hoe mentioned, if we were to use blockchain, or if there's a slight interest in moving to blockchain by market participants, it is more of a tool to move the instruments itself to a more efficient ledger, I would say, rather than traditional centralized ledgers that we're using right now. And with that itself, I think it also comes back to resonate with what Penny is saying. Is there a layer of trust within all the market players whereby is everybody comfortable to move to blockchain if we were to move into a method of trading in a more efficient manner? That is my point on that. And my opinion on how the future of trading will go is really about when it comes to decision making, where there's more minute or even second related decisions that have to be made in the market. Is there a platform to do so? I think very recently BNM actually came out with a electronic licensing platform framework for trading onshore. That actually they try to regulate the tech itself on what is allowed to be traded, directly on the platform and what is not. And I think most importantly, when it comes to technology, when you are trying to introduce new technology, there's always the risk, and when it comes with risk, there's always the need to manage the risk. And I think while we are trying to move into a more efficient manner of trading, we should also look into the risk management aspect of it.
Okay. Thank you, Eak-Kuan, for the sharing. I think by now, I believe we all have some form of idea what's the industry is all about. I think perhaps maybe we can, share a little bit on your CFA journey. If you can share on how CFA program helped you on your career journey in banking.
Okay, I mean, this again, right? I mean, I'm speaking from my own personal experience. I'm sure the rest of the panelists here would have their own respective experience to talk about as well. So I took the program back when I first started working in 2006, and really one of the reasons for that was, I thought that it allowed me to pursue a professional finance-based qualification while I worked, right? And definitely at that point of time, the program wasn't as prominent as compared to the present popularity. Like today, I think the local society is doing a very good job in promoting the program, right? And definitely it was the thing to really consider because of really the tailored flexibility vis-a-vis the cost involved, like for I won't say a small money, but right, but in terms of the commitment, right, it's a smaller in terms of cost compared to otherwise, typically a master's in finance or any other course, right? So, and also in truth, right, back then I've always wanted to pursue a career in asset management. I wanted to be an asset manager, and given at that point of time, it was also perceived to be the go-to qualification to really improve my chance of getting a role back then. Of course, having said that, right, the beauty of the program do not just prep anyone, notably candidates here, to be a money manager, but also to develop good financial knowledge all around. So, I thought that when looking back, it had really helped me to further my knowledge. And interestingly, it really did help develop my interest in corporate advisory, especially in advising on corporate with regards to matters like capital raising, which I'm currently very much involved. Then interestingly, again, I did do a year in terms of in equities research, and that was shortly after my stint with the Securities Commission, right? And then looking back, I've always really pondered how things would be, or how would my career pan out if I've just stayed back in equities research or investment management. So I guess it's going to be a little bit too late, for me to find out right now. But again, I think what I would like to stress is that, if you look at the profile of the panelists here, right? I mean, like you have how you have introduced us. I think Nabil, I recall that you are in corporate strategy. And of course, Kar Hoe is leader in terms of looking at financial institution practices. Eak-Kuan very much involved in treasury. So I would say that the CFA program, by and large, provide a fairly good testament, in terms of the career mobility coming from the learning, right? So maybe perhaps I'll stop here to take questions if you have, or even questions from the floor.
I mean, some of the question, what kind of advantage holding your CFA charter? I mean, higher salary and whatnot. I mean,
okay, yeah. I mean, this is definitely something which I believe most aspirant
yes,
candidates moving into finance, line of finance, you have always asked, right? I suppose whether or not does it give you a salary advantage. I've done quite a bit of hiring on my own, right? I mean, naturally, we would like candidates to be very well equipped, right? I mean,
yeah,
if you do have additional qualification, then I would think that it does bode well. But whether or not it helps you with higher salary, if I have to be honest, I don't think so. But again, right, I stand guided. I suppose the other the other applicants here, people that have seen that, the panelists, other panelists, you may have your own your experience to share, but definitely it allows your CV to stand out. I think that's the point that I want to make, right? And as employers, we like our candidates, we like our employees to really pursue your professional development. And really, if you are someone that can put in time, to work on that aspect, I would say that you are going to be fairly desirable in terms of looking at improving your career. And I suppose that should come with a higher salary, hopefully. Yeah.
I guess CFA is sort of like opening our doors to more opportunities. I think I would say that. I think I echo what you say. Higher salary may or may not necessarily be true, but it definitely give you an advantage over.
Yeah, maybe just a final point, right? I suppose some of y'all who probably would like to pursue maybe specifically in certain careers, say for example to be on a sell side research. When I talk about sell side research, I mean these are analysts that work for brokers, and your role is to really write on stock ideas. Then definitely getting the CFA charter does really open the doors for you. If you are very much involved in asset management, then I would think that it's definitely a prerequisite. When I say prerequisite, given that by and large people around you are also CFA charter holders, naturally the norm is that you would want to work towards that, right? Learning the profession. So I think that's probably that. Of course, in the line of job that I do, I would say it's probably a bonus, right? I mean, it's not going to be a necessity. I mean, I have contemporaries who are who come from various backgrounds. I even have doctors, pharmacists. I've seen lawyers who are also esteemed bankers, right? I mean, so that's really my personal insights, right?
Yeah. Thank you, Wee, for the sharing. Eak-Kuan, if you can give us some advice on especially to our aspiring charter holders, how to navigate the challenges to stay relevant in the banking industry.
Yeah, for me, I like to keep things simple. Challenges are always there, definitely. I mean, not even in banking. I mean, in any career you would do, I believe there will always be challenges. And if you turn that perspective around, to have that challenge actually just means that you're actually doing something right? Because you're actually going against the current to build something out of it. This is something that my mentor used to tell me. If you want to succeed or navigate through a career, there's only three pillars you should look at. The first thing is your technical skills. So basically, if you need to be so if you are doing a role as let's say for example a sell-side equity research guy like what Keng Yip mentioned just now. So you need to know your stuff. You need to know how to do your DCF. You need to know how to do your forecasts and projections and stuff like that. So be specialized in the technicalities of your specific field, be it in banking or be in any career. The second point is that the soft skill itself. How do you actually manage people? Interpersonal relationships. How do you actually manage your stakeholders? How do you present yourself in front of a board or in front of anyone? Yeah, so that is second point. And the third thing is actually how with your technical skills and with your soft skills, how are you actually to expand your network within that particular career or within that particular sector? And I think that is where where the CFA comes in quite relevant and quite useful in the sense that we have this thing. So I mean, this event right now is organized by CFA Malaysia, right? Which have they have done a very good job, getting the charterholders together, getting aspiring guys together to see, how can we actually further move this industry forward? How do we actually build bridges between aspiring charterholders and even within charterholders in Malaysia itself within the industry? So I think with those three kind of pillars working together, this is where you can try to stay relevant within the industry and keep moving forward in terms of how you want to progress your career.
Right. Kar Hoe, I think maybe you want to share a little bit about your CFA journey and how does it helps with your progress?
Yeah, sure. So it's been an interesting one. So I'm actually in the audit line. So I service clients in the financial services, but my specialty is in the asset management. So I'm always auditing the asset managers, whether they are mutual fund house, or private equity players, or real estate players. So after a while, I start to like what they do, and wanted to know more about what they do, and I came across the CFA qualification. Did that. It's a very painful process, but I think it's worth it because I told myself even if I didn't pass the exam, I felt that even the knowledge that I've gotten from the exam was already very helpful, and eventually I think it has benefited me, and it's going to be a lifelong benefit because right up till you getting your charter, that's just the beginning. Because I think if anything, you get even more benefit from being a part of the society. And I encourage all of you to sign up for the program and pass it. And once you pass it, please sign up to be part of the society because it is a very active society and they always organize. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, these things stop. But otherwise, there's a lot of activities that really brings people together. And you have like random weekday lunches, and they will introduce a very relevant topic. And more important is I get to build my network around people in the industry, and these networks is actually very helpful. And I bring these networks back, and we talk about how I can service them in their organizations, and that is something that I would like to share with you. I really hope that all of you will give it a go.
Thank you, Kar Hoe. Thank you so much for promoting CFA program as well. Well, I think we are about to end the session in a couple of minutes' time. Just before we end our discussion today, just want to go around all panelists. Have any last minute suggestion or any words you like to share with the undergraduates and young professional out there? Maybe you can start with Wee.
Yeah, okay. I think thanks for that, right? So really, I mean, all I can say is that do not stop in terms of learning, right? I think what's important is that you demonstrate that the need to improve ourselves. In fact, even learning after 15 years working, I felt that learning, it's not enough for anyone. And definitely, we will always need to find ways to skill and to ourselves. And again, I know some of the challenges, especially for some of y'all who have just graduated from college, right? And you're in the process of looking for a job, and looking at the environment that we are in, definitely things are a lot more difficult, right? Opportunities are a lot more lesser. So all I could tell you all is don't give up, right? If you have not found the job of your choice or the job of your interest, continue to persevere. Look at opportunities to reskill yourself if there is a need to. And I think rightfully, my final words to all of you all, it's all the best in your future undertakings.
Thank you, Wee. Yik-Kuan?
I think I pretty much resonate a lot with what Keng Yip just said. I mean, when it comes to entering the workforce, I do admit that when me myself entered the workforce, it was quite daunting. You really don't know what's happening when you have been having fun, for the past 20 and 21 years, and then suddenly you are just thrown into something to do for the next, 20 to 30 years. I mean, some people can get it done in 10 years if they're lucky enough. But I resonate with what Keng Yip said. Keep learning. Keep yourself open-minded and agile. Things will always change. Today we could be talking about digital banking. I don't know, maybe 5 to 10 years from now we are talking about another form of banking that we can't even fathom right now. So if the thing is, if we keep ourselves agile, keep thinking about what can we do better, what is the latest trend that we can try, how do we actually add value to the businesses that we work with, or even if setting up your own business that add value to society. I think that itself is pretty much how you can always keep yourself driving forward. I mean, for both your personal growth and your career growth.
Yeah, agility. I think that's a very good summary of what you've been saying. Kar Hoe, last words?
Yeah, I think I want to add on something. It's like for those who are studying CFA, you will know that across all three levels, there's probably one part that is repeated across all three levels. That's ethics. I think that is actually very important. It plays a big part in your career. You look at what the profession is trying to instill in you, the values. One of the key value will be like loyalty to customer, and I think that is basically something that's being transposed across all industries. Like for example, even this digital banking license application, the focus is always on the customer, and somehow the profession has trained us to have certain focus and integrity to ensure that at the end of the day, whatever that we do, we get the desired tangible outcome. So carry those values with you, and it will get you far in your career.
Thank you, Kar Hoe. Thank you, everyone. I think we're just complete our session, just right 7:15. Thank you so much for listening. Queenie, I think
Yes.
I'll go back to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Nabil and panelists, Engineer Nabil and panelists for the very interesting discussion. I believe our participants had clearly known about how digital disruption has affected the banks and led to a new fashion. So closing off day 4 of Career Carnival, we will be having a mentoring session at the social launch. And based on our past 2 days experience, mentoring sessions were successful with all tables fully occupied. And here's some guidelines for the mentoring session. There will be a total of 9 mentors. Each table will be led by a seasoned mentor in the industry. This is your opportunity to pick their brains and ask them anything and everything about the banking industry. As usual, participants, you'll be moved to the social launch. For a better mentoring experience, we'll keep the group small. A mentor will only have 5 mentees on a table. So we highly encourage you to turn on your cam and unmute yourself to speak with our mentors. Our team may consider expanding the table capacity should the need arise. When we move to the social launch later, please wait for a few minutes for our mentors to be seated. Once they are seated, we'll notify you when our mentors are ready via the chat box and alert tab. Please keep an eye on both alert tab and chat box. If you can get a spot on the mentors table, you can also go to our CFA Society table to speak with us. This mentoring session will end at 8 p.m. While you may continue your conversation at the table, but please to respect your mentor's time if they need to leave. Lastly, I'd like to give everyone a gentle reminder. Don't forget to mark the last day of Career Carnival on your calendar. Stay tuned for our upcoming session, and we will be having a forum on priming the next gen for a sustainable future, followed by our career portal launching and a lucky draw. So see you on Saturday. Thank you. We hope you have an insightful session later.